Welcome, everyone, to the Community Leadership Summit, happening virtually and kind of in person. We've got Lisa and Rain and various others who are on site in Raleigh. So welcome to the session. I'm going to be handing this over to the other folks to kind of facilitate. You know, this is all about conversation, right? So the Community Leadership Summit is just a series of discussions, and this is obviously about diversity and inclusion, and we really kind of want to dig deep. And the idea of all of these sessions is that we all kind of bring our expertise, we all bring our thoughts, and this is an environment that's safe for everybody to kind of, you know, share new ideas and fresh perspectives, but also to, you know, to challenge and debate as well. Like, we want to kind of find where we all see things differently as well, which is always fun. Obviously, we want to make sure everybody is behaving in a polite and respectful manner. There has been some challenges today. I know the ATO team are, you know, they're running an in-person event and they're running a virtual conference. There's kind of a lot to manage there. So we've had some Zoom issues today. I'd encourage each of you to type into the chat if you want to be on the stage, just let us know, we can add you. But feel free to type into the chat if you're more comfortable with that. And I'd like to encourage our facilitators, and I'll be doing this as well, just be regularly kind of looking into the chat, reading out what those folks are saying as well. And with that out of the way, I'll hand it over to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much. That sounds great. And also, Jonna, before you leave, can you enable Jordana's video, please?
I will do my best. One second.
Appreciate that. We don't want to leave any beautiful soldier unloved on this video chat.
All righty.
There we go. Okay. Thank you, Jonna, and thank you also again for another amazing CLS day. In spite of everything, you've been able to keep this conference going, and it's been such a valuable part of our year. I actually required my entire team to be at CLS day. I'm like, if you pick one conference here, it has to be this one. So thank you so much. It was mandated, but we would have all been here anyway. It's just an incredible event. And it's so amazing to be here as a sponsor this year for Cockroach Labs to sponsor All Things Open. So yay, thanks Todd, thanks Jono. Okay, I'm just gonna put wait, can I share my screen? Oh yeah, I can. We did put together a slide. I'm sorry, hang on. What happened? Oh, it got lost when I had to do okay. Now we're back. Woohoo. There, and share and present. Can people see this slide?
Yeah.
Okay, yay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. And apologies in advance for anybody whose title I messed up. Rain, I just sort of made a little adjustment to your title. Whatever. I tell everybody they can be whatever they want. And
yeah, thank you.
And if I got anyone's Twitter thing wrong, speak up. So I won't leave the slide up the whole time. So if you want to write down any of this information, particularly our Twitter handles, we can certainly keep the conversation going after this. And we can promote anyone, as Jana said, to join us live and on camera. But I have to say, I'm really, really excited to be on stage with this particular group of people. Several for the first time for me. So always super exciting. All of us bring our own, our own expertise in this area. So we're going to have a great conversation. So with that, I think I'd like to start out by saying, so Johnny, you may have noticed, I tweaked the title a little bit of the talk because rather than, calling these talks diversity inclusion or D&I, I'm adding the E every time we speak about this topic, because I think that the E is the really important part, the accountability. And really, how are you going to bridge that wage gap? How are you going to make sure that corporations are accountable for diversity and inclusion? And to me, it's, it's the difference maker. It's not just talking about stuff. It's not just saying we're going to do something. It's actually doing something. And if you don't do it, there's accountability. So in some corporations, like Cockroach Labs, the metrics go all the way up to the board. Diversity and inclusion doesn't live in an HR department. It's not a numbers game. If you don't make this make the numbers. As a CEO, you don't get your bonus, and you don't make your okras, and you don't get to keep your job. So it really is that important. And I think that kind of accountability, I'm seeing more and more in corporations, particularly goaling with bonuses. If you're in a company that happens to pay out bonuses, you don't hire a diverse team, you don't get your bonuses. You don't promote enough diverse members to management positions. If your leadership and your board doesn't show enough diversity, you don't get your bonus. So those are the kind of things that we've really seen, the accountability part. And that's why I keep putting the E back in these talks. So the inclusion is also super important. I think I read somewhere, someone said, diversity is being asked to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance, or some analogy like that. But I think for community members and community advocates like everyone here, I think inclusion is super important to talk about. And I want to hear from folks about how, particularly in the era of 2021 and of everything being 100% virtual for the most part of the year, we are now in person for the first time in a long time, but virtual communities, and how we really made sure there was inclusion and people feeling valued in across our online communities. So why don't I start with Rain, who can talk a little bit about how you feel inclusion has been incorporated into some of the communities that you've run and work in.
Yeah, especially over the past year and a half, 20 months. Like there was this understanding or there was this statement made that now that we're virtual, it's more inclusive. And I don't 100% agree with that. Because when you don't travel away from your family or away from your house to a location, sometimes your partner still comes and talks to you. Sometimes your kids still come and talk to you and legitimately, of course, need things. But sometimes also your work still expects you to do your job full time in addition to attending an event. And it's just it's untenable. I found that even so next year, KubeCon is going to be in Detroit. We're at ATO this week, of course, in the Leadership Summit, but last week we were at KubeCon, and it announced that we'll be in Detroit next year, and 100%, that's where I live, and I'm super excited, but also I'm going to have to consciously leave my house and go to the hotel and spend the night, and that's a very privileged place to be. It's not fair that it's not available just because you can attend these virtual events. I find that you still have to kind of set those boundaries with work and with family to be like, I'm going to be focusing on this from 9 to 5, or at least from 9 to 10, and then I'm here for you. Very, very much set those boundaries. And I find that certain cultures and genders are more easily set those boundaries than others, very much. So it's been especially hard. I love that we included in 2021, because there are so many things I would talk about in the past, like pre-COVID, but dang, virtual conferences.
Yeah, bless Rain's heart. They're doing this with their mask on because they're still up there on the show floor.
Yeah, and people are still walking by. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. No one's talking with me, but people are definitely still walking by, and I don't want anyone to feel bad.
No worries. So I want to introduce Jordana, who is very active in the Drupal community. Jono, I just learned that you're a reviewer as well. And Jordana said, "Oh, thankfully we've never met, because that means I haven't had any issues that have been requiring." She says, "I haven't met Jono yet," and she's like, "Thank God." And I'm like, "Wait, so you have met Jono then?" She's like, no. So I kid because I love, but in the Drupal community, let's talk a little bit about community health. And Jordana, can you talk about some of your work there, and also what you've done around creating code of conduct and maintaining community health?
Sure thing. Thank you. Can you hear me properly? Yay, thank you. I have met Jono, but in a very hi, let's hope we don't talk again soon kind of a thing. So, but in a good way. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we have the community working group. It's now a little bit bigger. We have the community health team. So we have a proactive aspect of that team now that kind of works on doing trainings, and as well as the conflict resolution team, which I'm on as well, which is kind of focused on code of conduct enforcement. And if there are any issues within the community with certain people that they cannot resolve themselves, we try to be there to moderate, to help give gentle reminders of, we're all human, we all make mistakes, we're all going for the same kind of goal. So one of the big things we've done around code of conduct is, you're absolutely right, code of conduct is definitely necessary. But just like how the inclusion and the equity part, the enforcement part needs to be there. Otherwise, you have something that you're not really able to use because you don't know how to enforce it. So we've done these amazing code of conduct enforcement trainings with Sage Sharp that she facilitates and kind of teaches us of how do you, when somebody approaches you, how do you act? And even if somebody's talking to you about your best friend, you still need to be able to set that aside, listen with a full and open heart, and try to address the situation. So there are always going to be issues where things are triggering, where things are hard, but it's a super important thing. And I think generally in these spaces, we're going to falter, we're going to fail. That's kind of the nature of doing these types of things, because it's these hard spaces where we learn on the job kind of. But it's about, what do we do then? How do we hold ourselves accountable, and how do we make sure we learn from it, but others can learn from it as well. So yeah, the code of conduct enforcement, and trying to make sure that everybody has a safe, equitable environment has been like one of the forefronts of what we've been trying to accomplish in there.
And when we were talking about this earlier, you brought some really interesting points about making sure you don't just staff your committee with everybody with the same opinion and everybody who agrees on everything. Like, you need people to disagree. So how do you handle that situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we try to have like a diverse group of people as well, but it is a situation. If everybody agrees right away, for us, that's also a red flag. We will stop and we will reassess, and we'll say, what are we missing? Is there anything big we're missing? What if we play, I don't like to say the devil's advocate, but the 10th man, the kind of the issue of like, all right, how do we keep thinking about things differently? We need to think outside of the box. If all of us agree right away, we're missing something, right? There needs to be like a counterpoint in general of how we make sure that we cover all bases. So we're very deliberate. We've had issues where some of us disagree on things where we were surprised about each other, but we have this very safe and open platform where this group can just air all of our thoughts in a very safe space where there's going to be no judgments. If somebody feels triggered or has an emotional reaction, we try to take a breath. We try to give each other space. So we are very, very deliberate. But that's one of the not so great points about us that also makes us a little bit slow. Not a little bit, very slow. This has been the big, within the Drupal community, that's the thing that has been one of our the big things that work against us that we are trying to work on. But yeah, it's very deliberate. We make sure we try to see things from all different points of view. And again, like you said, we're not always going to get it right, and that's part of it. So we try to make sure that when something does go wrong, how do we approach it? How do we keep ourselves accountable? How do we make sure that we keep learning and growing?
Cool. And then I want to introduce Fatima, who does a lot of mentoring and speaker training in communities. Very passionate about that. As you know, mentoring is so hugely important for these, for these communities to bring in more underrepresented voices and to help with that, diversity and definitely inclusivity. So Fatima, why don't you talk about some of the programs you've worked on?
Yeah, I also work in the Drupal community like Jordana, and a lot of my work had been leading up as the former leader of the Drupal diversity and inclusion group. And during that period of my life, I was really passionate about bringing up new speakers. I think we hear from a lot of local events that, you know, we can't find speakers or we couldn't find a diverse lineup. And I think those are just excuses. And there are a lot of things that you can do to invest in experts. Like Jill Binder is a good friend of mine. I keep looking at Lisa Marie because she's in the room. She's sitting right there. Is a really great resource in the WordPress community that does, they do trainings for speakers. It's a series of sessions that walk people through coming up with ideas, you know, dealing with your nerves, putting together a presentation, how to speak and things like that. And that's something I learned in practice is you can bring in experts from other communities that may not necessarily know how Drupal works or the Drupal community works, but they understand their expertise really well and they can bring that knowledge and that information in. And so what we did was put together these speaker trainings to bring them to our communities and kind of bring up people who had the potential to be really great speakers, but maybe nobody ever invested the time or the support to work with them on them, or even thought that they had something to say. Occasionally these conversations can be funny. Like we had an idea where we were like, let's have white men submit sessions. And then when they show up, they're like, sorry, this session isn't actually mine, but I knew everybody would come to it because I'm like a really well-known speaker. I would really like to give the stage to such and such. And we never actually went to do that, but you know, what Jordana was saying about safe spaces, like having ideas like that within a group that is doing community organizing is important because you can start there and get to scheduling speaker trainings and, you know, getting open source community funding for those speaker trainings. And so that was a very important thing to me. Now it takes the form of giving talks about, you know, putting together your own workshop and like understanding that you all have a story to tell. So those are things that I'm really excited about when it comes to community building.
Very, very awesome. Okay, so a longtime member of one of the communities that I've had the pleasure of running for, gosh, over 10 years now, in the San Francisco Bay Area, the Cloud Native Containers, but we started in OpenStack World, which is how I know Rain as well. And Joseph Sandoval. Joseph is at Adobe. Joseph, we did sort of introduce you in the beginning. There was a slide. You had your picture on it. Your Twitter address was up there, Cloud Taquiero, which is just one of my favorite Twitter handles until I met Fatima. Sugar Overflow might have Cloud Taquiero beat by a little bit. Pretty awesome. So I thought Software Dev Angel was creative, but oh man, they're just taking it to new levels here. So Joseph, you've had some great stories over the years about mentoring, and you've been on, you know, many DE&I panels. Do you have something particularly you want to talk today about, you know, code of conduct in communities that you've run, or mentoring programs that you've run, or just, you know, what you're doing at Adobe and everywhere else in your life? We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, no, I know, Lisa, we have kind of, I think back at all the times we have spoken together, whether it's through, you know, Open Source Summit, you know, other open infrastructure, and now we're here in a lot of the, you know, Kubernetes events. And, you know, a lot has changed, I think, in regards to how I would tackle. I think initially when I started off, my goal really was to increase that representation of Black, Brown, and Native in open source. I had a really strong belief that if there was going to be change that was going to happen, that we talk about this challenge that's in this space in regards to increasing the representation. I felt like this was a really good platform to do it. I felt like open source would be an area that would be very inclusive and that would be opportunities. And I was really trying to funnel some of the efforts that I was working with groups like Techeria, Natives in Tech, and a few others. But over the years, I found like there's definitely was some challenge and some great opportunities to use these things, but I found that it took a little bit of evolution as well for a lot of us to be able to evolve in these different communities, to be able to create those safe spaces for individuals to come in and to be welcomed and to really be welcome as who they are and to be able to be authentic. And I really feel excited about seeing some of the effort that's kind of happening here. I think, you know, I still would love to see a little bit more Native representation. I think this last KubeCon, we saw a little bit of acknowledgement. I think for a lot of us in this community, we're kind of like still not enough because there's a lot that's there, but I'm excited to see like, hey, I'm really excited about 2022 with what we can do there and be able to, you know, get others in here. And sometimes we don't realize the gap that is there. And I think that's part of the challenge. And even in my own journey in getting into open source is, there's a lot of assumptions made, and we really have to try to continually meet individuals who are marginalized and meet them where they're at, and then help them realize that you're going to make mistakes. It's going to be challenging, but I'm really excited because I'm starting to see just the change that's happened. I think I work really closely with the Kubernetes SIG release team, and one thing that I was really excited about is to just see that most of the Kubernetes release team and how it gets cut, it's being handled by individuals that are from they're Latin American. They're down, Mexico. We're seeing the female representation. We're seeing this starting to happen where before I was a little pessimistic, I was worried and concerned, but now just seeing it is really, really exciting. And I just hope that going into 2022, that we could challenge ourselves. And I think, Fatima, you made a really good point. Like, I think a lot of individuals that have that privilege, like we talk about, you see somebody, you show somebody, well, hey, if you're speaking, you should bring somebody along with you. And I've been challenging like the CNCF, I've been challenging other organizations to be like, no, that platform needs to be more diverse. It does not represent our communities and we can do better. So I'm really hoping that we can all rise to that challenge.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. And it's funny, our next session is about events and building community. And Bart is actually a panelist on the next one, but I'm so glad you jumped in early because I want to ask you a specific question. But in the meantime, too, what Joseph just said, there's lots of ways, even if you don't get your talk accepted, where you can still, or if someone doesn't get their talk accepted, you can still help them out. I often have had panels where a panelist has had to drop out at the last minute, today included. And then, that if it's at a place like KubeCon where you have to pitch your talk and get it accepted and it's very, very competitive, if you have panels that drops out, that is a golden opportunity to go put someone on stage who's never been on stage before. That talk gets reported, they get a footprint on YouTube, and it's easier for them when they're going to apply for the next talk. And someone did that for me at KubeCon, and I did that for Joseph at KubeCon and a couple of other places. And then, it starts from there. And so, just sharing that love and thinking about deliberately, when you get those talks accepted, how can you, lend that credibility and privilege to someone else who has been struggling to get it. And so I just love how earlier in my career, Nithya and Jono did that for me. And I so appreciate it. And I try to do that as much as possible. Hence lots of new wonderful people that I'm just meeting for the first time on the panel who deserve to be here. I mean, it's not like anyone, has to earn it. It's like you've already been doing it. You've paid it forward. You now should be getting the credit, and the world should learn from your expertise. So having said that, Bart, I have a question for you because we've been talking about diversity and inclusion in community in 2021 specifically. You have started one of the most fastest growing communities that I've seen. I'm so impressed with your work in the DOK community. That's Data on Kubernetes. You've been doing all of it from Spain. And you've built this incredibly diverse in Latin America. You're doing it in 2 languages. So this global community with a Slack channel that went to 2,000 within weeks. I mean, incredible. But one of my favorite things about your community is your commitment to activism. And after every meetup, can you talk a little bit about the organization that you donate to?
Yeah. First of all, very, very nice to be here. Very nice to see everybody and see some people for the first time. And I got to meet Joseph as well, too. I just want to give a quick shout out for the first time last week in KubeCon. And just immediately the same energy that I feel right now is what I felt when I met him, like, oh, we're going to get in trouble together. This is going to be really good. And so I look forward to getting in trouble with everybody. Good trouble, of course. And yeah, so in the Data on Kubernetes community, it was very clear to me from the very beginning. I just come from a very strong family in terms of social justice background, and had heard about an initiative through a podcast called Ear Hustle that's made by and for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals. And obviously they talk about the tech gap. If someone's been away for 10, 15 years, can you imagine how difficult and challenging it is to think about emails, smartphones, all these different things? So there's a program that was started in San Quentin. I don't know exactly when. And there are other programs like that in the US and also in the UK that is they're teaching programming skills to folks that are incarcerated. That means that while they're incarcerated, not only are they acquiring skills, they can get paid and have a better landing and better possibilities when they get out to avoid recidivism, and also to feel that that they're acquiring skills that are very, very much in demand right now. And so we've had different kinds of collaboration with this organization called The Last Mile. Like I said, there are other ones out there, but a lot of it is that I think every community has to ask themselves, and it's not just ticking off of boxes. We are in, as you just rightfully mentioned, Lisa, we're in a position of privilege to be able to give back. And it's really an honor to be able to do that. And so whether it's with getting folks those first opportunities, a couple of weeks ago, we had our DOK Students Day, where over 25 students that were primarily from India and Pakistan got to give their talks got to give a talk for the first time. And once, like you said, Lisa, they get that YouTube footprint, they get the confidence and the experience of building something, adding that to their personal brand. I think it's an amazing thing, and it really isn't that hard to do. So for everyone that's on this call right now, let's get another call going later this week or next week, and let's start something else. But anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Great to be here.
Yeah, and if honestly, if you're listening or if you're watching this on replay, reach out to Bart at the DOK community. That's Data on Kubernetes community. Bart runs about 4 meetups a week, and they're all virtual. And so it's a great opportunity to to showcase new talent. And it's all about, the future of data, which is a super important topic. So thank you so much for that. And also for all the work you're doing with the incarcerated folks in the United States. For those of you not in the United States, you can read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. You can follow, Angela Davis is one of my mentors, and prison reform has been on her agenda for decades. And so it's something I'm very passionate about, and it's a big problem in the United States, and it's a very unbalanced problem that affects a distinct portion of the population way unfairly. So anything you can do in that program to help train incarcerated folks to be able to get jobs when they come out is just super epic. The last mile, support it. So another thing, Nithya couldn't be here with us today because she's actually on stage at All Things Open talking on this very topic right now. So it's another talk you can go and catch on replay later. But we were talking a little bit about some stuff that she's super passionate about. And so I wanted to make sure I brought up, so there's this ESG, Environment, Sustainability, and Governance group that if you haven't heard of, it's like Goldman Sachs and NASDAQ, and folks that are actually making sure that corporations are showing accountability. So not just financial results, but also it's about the people, and it's about the environment and the community accountability. And so there's a lot of organizations like that are actually, holding companies responsible. You probably saw Satya's big email at Microsoft that went out right around last summer during the Black Lives Matter marches that came right after George Floyd's murder. And Satya really said, it's not just going to be good enough for our hiring practices at Microsoft. We're going to hold all of our vendors accountable as well. So you've got a lot of people from the very top who are making sure that there's accountability going all the way through, and that it's not just a numbers game. It's not just a PR move. It really is about closing that wage gap, and also, fair hiring practices, and so much stuff across the board. Okay, so let's see. We've got about 15 more minutes, I think. I'm not sure how tight John is staying to the schedule here.
Listen, just so you know, we have a little bit of, there's about a 15-minute gap, I think, between sessions. So if we go over, really, there's frankly 15 minutes of over time if you want to kind of go through it. So don't feel too pressured.
No worries. And there's just so much talent here, and I want to make sure I give everybody more chance to say amazing things. Rain, I know you've been really active in the Python community, and also, of course, OpenStack before that, and now in the Cockroach community, and you've been helping us a lot, kind of overcome some of our, getting some stuff together, like our code of conduct. When I joined Cockroach Labs, we have a code of conduct for docs, but we were hitting some roadblocks with getting the code of conduct together. And I know that was, that's a sore point for a lot of our engineers, and me included. And in hiring in DevRel, every single person that I interviewed was talking about that. So companies, you should know, people are paying attention. And when you're building communities, especially open source communities, that's one of the first things I go and look at when I'm looking at open source projects. So Rain, do you want to talk a little bit about code of conduct?
Absolutely. It's one of those things. My analogy is that if your car doesn't have a seatbelt, why would you drive it? And I've been in enough accidents that I require a seatbelt in my car, sadly. And I wish that it took less for people to become aware of how valuable it is, but it seems like depending on your your culture and gender background that you are more aware of the importance or less aware of the importance. And that's kind of sad, but it's starting to percolate out. 100%, I won't apply to a conference or a company if they don't have a code of conduct. And Cockroach Labs almost failed that because of the specific GitHub repo, the main GitHub repo. I was like, but we fixed that almost immediately, and that's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, I can stay here. Cool. I feel like we don't need police, but we need monitors. We need people that we can know that we can hold hands with if we need to, know that we can go to people like Jordana and, say, I feel uncomfortable, and it may completely 100% be a misunderstanding and whatnot, but those people need to exist and be visible for people who do exist but do not feel visible. So yeah, that's one of my passions is seatbelts. And yeah, I like, for me, I would love to hear from Jordana, like, what do you do when you disagree? Like we're all like, I think, especially on this call, agreeing, yes, seatbelt, cool. But and that resonates with me that if everyone agrees, that's a red flag, 100%. But then, like, how do you solve those disagreements? Do you compromise? Do you, like, are there times when compromise won't cut it? You know what I mean? Like, that's the question I have for Jordana, especially.
So it's a hard question because it's happened before where somebody will raise their hand and say, I'm not sure. That's generally how it'll start. Somebody will say, wait, I think we need to pause. I'm not sure we're doing the right thing, or I'm not sure if I completely agree with what's happening. I want to take a beat and just kind of let's talk this out. Let's discuss this. And what we've had to do is, as soon as somebody says that, we stop. It doesn't matter if it's just a little bit of a doubt. It doesn't matter. We just stop. We take a break. We take a pause, and we make sure that we listen to each other completely openly. Have that. Do you feel comfortable? Are you sure? I think we still need to think about this a little bit more. Let them all over, and we kind of try to err on the side of caution, on the side of slow and steady, making sure we get it right. Knowing we're not always going to get it right. So that's the hard part, right? Knowing but still trying your best to make sure, okay, you do not want to add more harm, right? You want to make sure you're not adding any harm with your actions. It does, like we always say, intent does not mean impact, right? You can have the best intentions, but your impact can be awful. And we've had that. Sometimes people, I oftentimes have I don't realize the privilege I have within the Drupal community because I am on this team. I just think I'm just a small little person, but then realizing, oh, you have that big impact. You need to be very careful about how you're using it. And sometimes we forget, and we have to check ourselves about it as well. And make sure to just, as soon as there's like a little tickle of a doubt, we try to say it. So and yeah, there's been times where we haven't agreed, where we're still in that little flux, and we try to talk it out, we try to hash it out, and we've had moderators, we've tried to have people come in and talk with us as well, so that we can learn more about things, to try to see other perspectives. So we have what we call subject matter experts that will try to talk to us about culture differences we're not seeing, or like any kind of like language part, anything that we might be what we might be missing. We ask folks to come in and like they have to agree to not just our code of conduct, but we also have a values doc. Yeah, thank you. There's a statement of values. I'm pointing to Fatima right there. We have a values and principles doc, but the CWG also has a higher thing that we sign. I forget what it's called, but that we make sure that we treat people's data and privacy, like we make sure to, it's a little bit higher than just a code of conduct. We hold ourselves to a higher standard, and the subject matter experts have to read that and agree, and then come into this calls with us and conversations with us.
That's beautiful.
You know,
I
Jordana,
Go
just
ahead.
kind of, can I ask a question to the group? Just something I've been thinking about recently that I'd be curious to get everyone's thoughts on. You know, with a code of conduct, obviously it's a really important document. And my big worry about a lot of communities is that it just doesn't get read. It doesn't get understood. And there's two things that are triggering this question that I'm about to ask. One is that I learned a little while ago that when doing surveys, one of the best things you can do in a survey is that your first question is a super easy question with like 2 multiple choice answers, because then you kind of like break the seal and just getting people kind of used to answering questions. And I also saw a friend of mine who's got a training course. And one of the things that you can do when you go through that training course is you're incentivized to kind of check off really simple things like go and join this community group and, you know, go and read this particular document. And I would just be curious if anyone's got any thoughts on how, as part of a community onboarding flow or just as part of the community experience, how the understanding of the code of conduct could be weaved into it in the same way that, like with the survey example, it's just a really simple way to get you used to kind of like literally the conversion rate in surveys go up like by 30 or 40% when you add a simple question at the beginning compared to a more complicated question. And you have all got so much more experience than I do in this area. I'd just love to get your thoughts on ideas, creative ways to get people familiar with this, with a code of conduct beyond, oh, it's that thing that's in the footer of my forum that I'm never going to read, which I think sadly is the case with a lot of people.
And I absolutely have no answer because I mean, even literally right now in the process of writing the code of conduct with Cockroach Labs, and I 100% agree with this path, is that myself and an engineer, we wrote it together. I presented my version, he presented his. We just went, you know what, let's just see what resonates with people. So it's this huge thing and everyone's giving their input as to what resonates for them and whatnot. And it's becoming this huge, scary spaghetti monster of doom. But at the same time, there's nothing I would cut.
Yeah.
And they're all valid points. And I do not have the answer, so maybe someone else does.
I would love to hear that as well, but I was gonna just echo that same sentiment of that it's a delicate balance of making sure it's easily digestible, that people can very quickly absorb it without necessarily knowing where English is sometimes not their first language, right, as well. So you'll have that translation barrier as well, but also make sure it's specific enough that it's clear enough without it being too specific that people can toe the line.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem. That's why we can't have nice things.
Well, so just in a little bit in fairness, I love that. I love when Jordana said intent does not mean impact. And there comes a point where, you know, paralysis by analysis, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Like you just have to get something out there, first of all, like it just has to be. And I mean, we've got this great code of conduct on the docs repo, which was good enough to, as a start, to just publish verbatim. And we have a great code of conduct on the Slack channel. The reason it gets so long is because, like you said, Rain, every single thing in there is important. And usually, like I just added some stuff to our Slack channel code of conduct because I needed to put it in there when I needed to send it to someone, because it directly, you know, spoke to the reason I was asking them to have, you know, to leave the community because of incredibly bad behavior. So I went in there and I edited it. and sent it. And so you can do that. You can use the code of conduct in your favor. One thing we did to make it more digestible is break it up into sections. So if someone, if is looking for a certain section, because not everything is going to apply to everybody. So you need it to be skimmable enough and have, a table of contents in the different sections so that you can go directly to the section that you want to absorb or read the stuff that's important. And then I think also we do mention it on the Slack channel, every few months or so. Hey, you know what? If we love this community is amazing, but this community is growing super fast. And if you haven't had a chance to read our code of conduct, we would love that you do so. And then, Jonna, you're big on incentives. You can gamify it, like put like some Easter eggs in it somewhere. And it's like, hey, if you could find the 3 Easter eggs, we'll send you a t-shirt, do something like that to actually make sure someone gets all the way through it. So I think there's things you can do to make it more digestible. But really it's there kind of like a legal document so that if you do have the unfortunate situation, which I unfortunately had very recently in our Slack channel, that you have to reprimand someone or extract them from the community, then you have that backup and you have a team that feels empowered also to be able to say, hey, Lise, you might be too nice, or maybe you're not going to, that was done to you, so you're not going to do it. And then your team gets your back and sends the code of conduct out. And
it's interesting because the part of the genesis of my question here, and I appreciate that this is a really hard problem to solve, is that I think, we probably all agree that people are reluctant to learning or consuming information when either one, it's too long, or two, it feels like a lecture. And I was just thinking as you were talking, Lisa, that it's almost like with the way some companies do values. Like, so my wife Erica's company, Bitnami, when she was there, they did a really good job where the team kind of came together and carved out some company values, but then like they drew them on the wall when they were in every meeting and things like that. And I wonder whether that could be like one element to this, of like just a greater awareness of the code, of what's in the code of conduct. Is I wonder whether it would be maybe easier if it was broken, if most codes of conduct are broken down into consumable, like, here are our 8 values that are then part of Zoom meetings, part of sessions at events, in the same way that companies tend to plaster them all over the place. Because my worry is that, if it's sat in the code of conduct, one, is not enough people read it, but then two, if it's not front of mind, then it doesn't impact people's behavior, right? But just an idea.
I think,
go ahead.
I think too, sometimes we as the people who write these things and we come in contact, or if we're on the leadership piece, we feel like, oh, we've heard this 1,000 times. But then if you talk to folks who are like at Google or Facebook or other places, about the time they start getting sick of an internal message, it's just reaching like 2% of the people outside the internal organization. So I think one of the things that I'm looking at for next year to do this, and on the community side, is to make sure once a quarter we go over things like our mission, vision, values. We go over our code of conduct. We just have a webinar that we record. Boom, there it is. We don't make it too long, less than 20 minutes, or you lose people, those type of things. And then just reiterate, hey, if you're new and you haven't checked it out, here's where you can get this. And just to keep, even though we may think it's so repetitive and boring, it's really not, because somebody out there's always one new person coming to your community every single day, and they're not born with this knowledge. They don't know. So you just have to remind people that are on your team, look, you can't say you're tired of it because there's somebody out there who hasn't heard of it. So I think the onus is on the leadership to always keep it in front of people and make it a place where it's not like a hammer. It's not like where you're threatening people and they're afraid to do wrong in your community, but they want to do right for the sake of doing right, not because they're afraid of doing wrong. And I think any way that you can perpetuate that message is good.
Yeah, Joseph, I think you had some thoughts on this.
No, I think it's probably similar. I think in the Kubernetes community, I think we kind of have a thing where, like, any SIG meeting, no matter which one it is, we all it's a reminder. I mean, and it always kind of gets summarized in what the code of conduct is be excellent to one another. But it's just one thing. And I think, kind of to John, to your point, it's one way to kind of summarize. But I think when we onboard a lot of our shadows, which are really new people that are coming into this community, we ask that they read the code of conduct. And I know humans are going to always hack and optimize their time and what they're doing. Do I feel like everybody really spends time to really understand what's in there and the value of why it's there, and why it's also like a protection and a safe space for them as well as they come in here, because there's going to be things where they need this. And so I've noticed in the Kubernetes community with some of the governorship with the SIG Contribute X, who are also kind of like over here looking at a lot of these things, really dealing with some of these issues. I still feel like there's some opportunities, like I've suggested, where maybe as we bring people on board them, since they're in these roles where they're on the release teams, we spend time with them to really emphasize it, because I often feel that even though we have this great slogan and I love it, and I think it's a really good summary of it, I still feel like there's some things lost. And I just worry that we lose individuals because of certain situations I've seen happen. And I just don't want that. I want to make sure that they feel safe and protected, that there is a governance that will help them if things do get to that level.
Yeah, awesome. And I want to remind people, John says we can go for a couple more minutes. If you have any questions from the audience, I see a few folks are typing stuff in, and I see Rain, you got a shout out from your friends in the hood. Let's see, Edward says hi from Ann Arbor. And also Dave, thank you so much for your comments. Valuable insight as well. Thank you, George, for that link. Any other questions?
I think Fatima, she wants to have a comment, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to make a small point after Joseph. Thank you. Looking out for each other. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was listening to you all speak about the code of conduct was, what if someone doesn't have one at their organization, and how do they ask for one? And a way that I ask for one is really explicit, and I have to use the disclaimer that I have the privilege to be that explicit, but I just say, I will not feel safe at this event or organization or community or meeting until you have a code of conduct. And that's one of the ways, like I know Rain mentioned to me earlier in the hallway that they don't attend events that don't have codes of conduct. And so I agree with that as well. And sometimes when I'm stuck attending because of a work thing or some other obligation, that's what I say. I'm like, I don't feel safe to do this. And I would encourage anyone who exists in a space that doesn't have one to use that. And you can blame me for it if you need to. And then the other small point is, we were talking about like, how do we embody our values, or how do we break up our code of conduct and make it very visible? One of the things that we did at Code for Canada at a previous job is every meeting started with group agreement. So whoever was in the space, whether it was virtual or physical, agreed to certain things that came from our values or code of conduct, like this is a safe space to speak. One of the things that I see come up a lot is I will listen as much as I speak, and things like that. And so having those group agreements, sometimes it took the form of an empty slide. And so it was like, we're all here and present. And so before we start, are there accommodations or agreements that we want to make about this space right now? And I always felt that that made me feel a lot safer, because it helped me understand what the parameters of the space are, so I can then adjust how candid I want to be, and then also B, because it helped me understand that there were empathetic people there. And I think establishing that like level of trust with sometimes people who are strangers on panels is really important to feel comfortable enough to talk about hard things.
Yeah, that's awesome, Fatima. I'm pretty sure that blame is in the code of conduct somewhere. So despite what you said, you cannot blame her. No, we're not going to do it. But those were great last words. I don't see questions from the audience, and we're about to start going into our next. But you did get some shout outs. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to put the slide up just one more time so that you know how to reach us and keep the conversation going. So this is us. Of course, there was more folks, and also you'll see Bart and Amber and JP who just joined on the next panel, where we're going to be talking about events in building community, and especially in the last year where events have been really interesting, and most of them have gone virtual. So we'll be talking about how to use events to build communities as well. But I want to really, really thank everybody, including my new best friends who, jumped in at the last minute, and we tried to figure out how to get all on camera together, because it's in Zoom, you never see more than one person on the on the screen, but we had to figure out a way that we could sit 12 feet apart. So so we did that, but someday we'll have Zoom meetings where there's more than one person on the screen again, because that will just help bring all the energy. But thank you, Jono, for asking us to speak about this super important
Oh, thank
topic,
you.
and once again for doing CLS Day. And this is us.